first week there, one of the guys, mad respect for this guy. He's still on the job, comes up to me, he goes, listen, if you got to go in a cell with a dude, you got to gain their respect. If you got to go in a cell with a dude, you got to go in a cell with a dude. He goes, you look like the white cop that locked him up. And I took that to heart, like, I'm going to have to do that. So that's what ended up happening. I had to gain my respect in that place.
Welcome back to Locked In with Ian Bick. I have Michael Smith, a.k.a. Smitty, a former Pennsylvania correctional officer and police officer. He is an OG to the correctional system in Pennsylvania. He has crazy stories. He really is one of a kind, and they don't make correctional officers like this man in this world today. I am so excited to share Smitty's story with you all today. His energy, his enthusiasm, it's what we look for in a guest, and you guys are honestly going to love this episode. But before we get into this episode with Smitty, I need to thank our new sponsor, Cheech and Chong's Cruise Choose, for supporting Locked In. Go to trycruisechoose.com/lockedin for 30% off. I'm holding in my hand what the containers look like. You take a couple of these before sleep, and you have one of the best nights of sleep possible. Go try Cruise Choose today. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to lock in with Michael Smith. Smitty, welcome to Locked In, man. Pleasure having you. Thanks for coming from Pennsylvania today, right?
Yes, Philly, PA.
Philly.
Yeah.
We love Philly.
City of brotherly love.
Yeah.
Rocky.
I was in Philly for Rocky Day back in December, I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got to meet him and go to the statue and everything.
I think they opened up a store down there, too.
Yeah.
Like art museum and stuff like that.
My business partner did the mural behind it. He's a muralist, really? Yeah. There's a big, I don't know if you've been over there, but there's a big mural behind the store.
Yeah.
He drew that. It's really cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why I got to go.
Oh.
Yeah, I like Philly. I want to go there more. You know, my first time in Philly was when I was in prison.
At the federal detention center down there.
Yeah,
right?
That big tower.
Yeah.
I remember passing the Philly Zoo and everything on the way.
Right.
That's my first experience. Yeah, I got to get back there just to kind of like explore and stuff and check it out. And I was actually in Philly again a couple of years ago to film some TV show about, you know, like those divorce courts.
Yeah.
This was like roommate court. I had gotten a reality TV show because I brought one of my old roommates to court, and they filmed it in Philly.
Oh, really?
At some old firehouse that they used for TV production or something.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting.
Yeah.
You know the show Live PD?
Yeah.
So this was called Court Night Live, the same producers that did that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got to go to Philly to do that. Oh. Have you grown up in Philly your whole life?
Yeah. I was actually born in Vegas.
In Vegas?
Yeah, my dad was stationed out there in the military. Mm-hmm. And then we moved back to Philly when I was only 2 or 3. I was either 2 or 3 years old.
Oh, so you don't really remember Vegas too much?
Nah. Never even been back there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You don't like the appeal of it, or?
No, I'm afraid of flying.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll chase a guy with a gun any day, but flying, I like to be in control of my own destiny.
Okay. So you don't think you'll ever go on a flight?
Probably not. I will drive there, no problem.
Have you ever been on a flight before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. To Nashville, actually Hawaii.
Oh.
For my honeymoon.
Okay.
Doctor had prescribed me some meds for that. It was like, what was that show, The A-Team, when they got to drug Mr. T to get on planes? That's me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have kids?
I have 4.
What do they think about your no flying?
They bust on me about it, but they understand. So it is what it is. I'll drive everywhere though.
Yeah.
Like I love to go to Italy. I love to go back to go to Ireland. It's never going to happen.
Is that your background, Irish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a mother that was in the picture too? Father and mother growing up?
Yep. Well, actually, funny story. My dad was Catholic. My mom was Jewish.
Huh.
And my dad converted to Judaism when they got married. I was raised Jewish, actually. A lot of people don't know that. because they think, Jewish people look a specific way, and you hear a lot of racist comments, and I just laugh because they say it right in front of me, and this is before, and they don't realize, So, in 2020, I actually converted to be Catholic.
So back to Catholic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it was 2020 was a strange time for me, you could say. I resigned from Greater First State Prison, Phoenix, during that time because of some stuff that was happening. My coworkers telling the convicts that I was a retired Philly cop, and they respect I would say for the most part, I would say about 85%, 90% of the convicts in there respected me because the way I handled myself. Mm-hmm. It's always been like that. Even when I started as a CO in Philly, SCFCF, my first week there, one of the guys, mad respect for this guy. He's still on the job. He's a boxing trainer too. He comes up to me and goes, "Listen, if you got to go in a cell with a dude, you got to gain their respect. If you got to go in a cell with a dude, you got to go in a cell with a dude." He goes, "You look like the white cop that locked him up." And I took that to heart, like, I'm going to have to do that. So that's what ended up happening. I had to gain my respect in that place. Being a white boy from Northeast Philly, you don't know a lot of things. So when you go in a maximum security county jail, 2,000 inmates. I'll say county jail is inmates. When you get up to the state, you get up to the feds, they're convicts. That's what they want to be called. Reality hits quick. You grow up quick, I've been bitten in there. I broke both my hands in there. Been in the cells. I've seen suicide attempts, stabbings. You grow up quick in there. You got to mature quick. It's funny because during that time when I was in the academy, that show Oz came out on HBO.
Yeah, I got to watch it. Everyone says I have to watch it.
So a lot of those stories are real stories that they played in there. I was like, when I was watching it, I was like, damn, like you got to be you got to be a little bit off your rocker to apply for a job to work in a prison, because there ain't no happiness in there whatsoever. A lot of things that you were taught in the academy: be fair, firm, treat everybody equally. You always can say no and let it stand like that, but once you say yes, it's hard to turn that into a no. I always took those things literally, and that's how I ran my whole career in law enforcement. I remember dudes, I came in, I always was fit, so I always had my uniform always pressed, starched, gig line straight, They look at you and they respect that. They see like a frumpy CO, shirt all out, you look like you just ate 5 hoagies before you came in, you got food on your shirt. You're like, how do you respect someone looking like that, So you would get, like, the inmates would come up to me like, were you in the military? Nah, I was never in the military and stuff like that. But they try you, I remember one of the first times I went in a cell with a dude, we had rules, like there ain't no write-ups. Like I go in the cell with you, we're going to rumble. You ain't going to medical, I ain't going to medical. It is what it is. That's how you gain respect from the inmates. Of course, you're going to have some that ain't going to respect you. It's like that. It's a man eat man world. It's alpha male in that mentality in that prison, So I ain't saying I'm the most toughest guy in the world, but I'm walking in there as a man. I'm going to be walking out as a man, It's funny, like I've always said, I never feared of dying. I was talking to my buddy at work one day, and we were both talking about it, and he was like, I ain't feared of dying, but I'm fear of what I'm going to miss. And I was like, damn, that's true, you know? So how I always live my life is I appreciate everything I have, my family, my friends, you know? But the job that I had to put my life on the line, you know? Plenty of times I had a guy pull out a gun when I was a cop, you know, try to shoot me when I was working in North Philly. You don't think about it at that time, but after that, you're like, damn, my finger wasn't behind that trigger guard of his gun. He could have shot me, you know? But working in CFCF is what made me throughout my life, that I still am today. When I was growing up, I was a skinny kid, man. I weighed 110 pounds when I got into high school. I graduated at 135. Yeah, I played football. I played baseball at George Washington High School and stuff in Philly. Always had heart. I just didn't have the weight. I didn't have the skill, you could say, you know? So I got into lifting, working out after high school, and always wanted to be a cop, to be honest with you. I just wasn't able to get on with the tests and stuff. So I became the CO. And I think it was the best thing that's happened to me in law enforcement. I believe every officer, police officer, should work in the prisons for a year or two. It humbles you. Because all you have, at CSCF, all we had was our hands. We didn't have no pepper spray. We didn't have no nightsticks. We didn't have nothing, no vests, nothing, you know? A lot of, probably one of the most scariest moments I ever had at CFCF was Thanksgiving night. It was it was right after I got married, 2000, Thanksgiving night. The block went off in a D building. And how they have it at CFCF, there's A building, B building, C building, D building. A building was like where the kitchen workers were, and it was where A13 and A14 was the hole, the shoe. A13 was like our supermax. That's where guys that would get sentenced for to death row, they would end up there. If there was dudes on a writ from state prison, they would come to A13. It was behind plexiglass. It was like locked in, you're shackled, everything, everywhere you go. And then A14 was just a regular hole for fighting, stuff like that, contraband. So B building was quarantined. B2 was all the writs of the state convicts coming down, appealing their cases. Then you had C building and D building. And they considered the C building the projects and D building the straight ghetto. D building was like probably no doubt the roughest. All the stabbings were happening there. All the fights were happening there. It was everybody there for murder, you know, accused of murder, rape, everything. So they put me on D block. I'm the only white CO on D block, right, on 311 shift. And I had to earn my respect quick. So how I started doing that, I started busting on inmates, cracking jokes at them. So if they ended up getting a visit, I'd be like, yo, your baby daddy here, right? Oh, Smitty, that ain't right. But they bust on me back, stuff like that, you know? Tried to joke around with them all the time, you know? You have 8 hours with them. Don't make it miserable for yourself. Don't make it miserable for you. Working D building, we actually had this partner, and they wanted to put us in D building permanently, D1 pod 3, right? And the place was off the hook. And the one guy that was on 7 to 3 is the one who took me under his wing. He's the one who said that you got to go in the cell, you know? You got to earn the respect. So that block was off the hook on 3 to 11, like when we got it, like because there wasn't no steady officer. And me and my partner were like, we got to do something, you know? So the other COs had bets on us. They didn't think we were going to last on that block. So me and my partner were like, we got to treat them like men, you know? So we made up rules. The rules were, if you guys are going to fight, you're going to go in the cell, and that's it. You get your shit off, and that's all you do. No one goes to medical, and that's it. It's squashed. They respected that. Because if you really don't want to fight, you're going to fight right in front of the CO so they can break it up real quick or call the response team, you know? So once we started doing that, another thing, I didn't allow no child molesters or rapists on my block. They're lowest things in life. Once I found out you were on there, you were getting off somehow. Most of the time, it was PC. They would say they would want PC. That's how we ran our block. If you were a cell thief, I didn't want you on my block.
What's a cell thief?
Ones that just come in. So CFCF, you're out most of the day. There's no movement at CFCF. So you go to eat, you eat on the block. Food, the trays get sent up to you. You have your food there. The only type of movement is when you go to not medical for medication, which is still on the floor of D1, right? So how the buildings are at CFCF, center control's in the center. There's one second floor and the first floor, and there's 4 blocks on each level. So the only movement they had would be if they had visits, if they went to church, if they worked, if they went to get their GED, or if they went to get medication. Other than that, they're stuck on that block the whole day. So our jail was overcrowded. So they had multi-purpose rooms where they were closets where they made in the cells that were 6 beds. So there wasn't no bathrooms in them. So they couldn't be locked in. So you had actually 18 inmates always not locked in on the block. And they were the most biggest pains in the asses in the world because they would see, excuse me, they would actually, the other inmates would ask them to pass stuff and all, right? And, you know, you would see them pop out, or you see them look if we were locked in for head count, or if they were just locked in. And it was just your problem ones you would put in a cell right away when the cell opened up, because they were pains in the asses. It was like kindergarten and all. So when it was time to lock down, you see everybody running around trying to get hot water. It's 10:45. You got to lock down for head count for 11, and our shift is done. So our block was nuts. They never had a steady officer where the 7 to 3 officers ran it like tight shit. So, you know, like I said, other COs had bets that we wouldn't be on there, and we did our thing. And next thing you know, we had a block meeting, and we told them all the rules, you know? So the cell thieves are the ones that the cell doors aren't locked, you know, once it's open. So people will just rush in and try to steal stuff off, you know, the weaker inmates and stuff. I don't want that on my block. Like, a thief, you can't trust a thief, you know? I have more respect for a guy that did armed robbery because at least he's facing you and robbing you instead of a burglar that will break into your house while you're sleeping, you know? So I'll get them off the block. Like I said, the rapists and child molesters, crimes against the elderly, they took PC. They had no choice.
Sorry to interrupt the show today, guys, but I'm just really excited to talk about our sponsor for this episode. We're sponsored by Cheech and Chong. Yeah, that Cheech and Chong. And their 100% legal THC gummies, Cruise Chews. 20 years ago, the DEA broke down his door and Tommy Chong went to prison for selling glass bongs. Now he and his longtime partner Cheech are the biggest names in legal THC edibles. That's right, Tommy Chong found himself in the same shoes many of those who listen to this show have been in, including myself, and I'm so excited to be partnered with them so that our listeners can enjoy their products just as much as I do. We've entered a new era where Cruise Chews THC gummies are legal, so you could get them shipped directly to your door in every state except Idaho. You've probably seen Cheech and Chong ads online, and if you haven't tried them already, you might be wondering if they live up to the hype. Guys, I've gotten to try these, and I have to say, I love them. These are the containers that they come in right here. You take a couple before bed and boom, lights out. You have a great night's sleep. They're 3 milligrams of THC each, and it didn't take long for them to do the job. Not only did I feel relaxed, but I had one of the best nights of sleep after my first time trying them. I'm a huge advocate for using edibles to help relax, de-stress, and rest. And with how stressful my life is right now, I'm so thankful to have Cheech and Chong's Cruise Chews to help me decompress after a long day. And guys, there's more. It gets better. There are 30 gummies in this jar, and they taste great too. A bunch of different flavors. If you're looking for something to help mellow you out, head to trycruisechews.com/lockedin and get an extra 30% off their already low prices. That's trycruisechews.com/lockedin. I'll also have the direct link in the bio of this episode. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, check out that description and hit that link and use my promo code. Now let's get back into this episode with Michael Smith. What's the administration saying to you when you're saying, I don't want them on my block? What do they say? The higher ups.
They don't know.
So where do you put those guys then when they try to send them to your block?
Once they say for PC, you call the sergeants, be like, yo, this guy wants PC.
Oh, so that's how you get away with kind of doing that.
Yeah.
You have them do you like pull them aside and say, hey, I know you're here for this and you have to go PC?
I don't say it that nicely.
Oh, yeah, you're hard on them.
I'm like, you're a piece of shit. I want you off my block.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Like, but that's how it was ran. You know what ended up happening? Those inmates, 10:45, we told them, get your water by 10:40. That was it. Your hot water, if you want to make your chi-chi and stuff, right? Anything you need, get it by 10:40. At 10:45, they ended up shutting their doors and locking them. All we had to do was just walk around, make sure that doors were locked, that they weren't, stuffed with anything to keep it unlocked. Our block was ran. Me and my partner, we had that block down, and we had a female partner, and that's what that officer that took me under his wing. He said to us, he goes, "You got yourself a pretty black female, and you're a white dude. You ain't getting no respect. You got to earn it, And I know one day, I got hooked to work overtime for an open ward. Dude dislocated his elbow, so I was ticked because I was supposed to go out that night, and now I'm working overtime. This guy, it ends up, we didn't get done till 11 o'clock the next morning with this guy's dislocated elbow, right? So I was smoking at the time, and our bathrooms was also where all the broom handles were, right? So we the inmates would be like, yo, can I get a broom? Yeah, go ahead. When my jacket was in there with my pack of smokes. So when I went to catch a smoke break when I was working overtime, I was like, damn, where'd my cigarettes go, right? And I'm like ticked off, and I'm jonesing for a damn cigarette. I'm going on for 12 hours now not having a cigarette, right? So we get done at 11 o'clock a.m. We missed it by an hour of having a day off, right? Because it was like almost like 18 hours straight of work almost. It was like 17 or something, right? So I had to be in work at 3 p.m. I get on a block. I find out my partner called out sick. I have a damn toothache. One of the inmates comes up to me, right? One of my workers, be like, yo, Smitty, were you missing cigarettes? And I was like, yeah, why? Goes, the guy in 19 cell, when he went to get your broom, when he went to get the broom, he went through your pockets. And he took that pack of cigarettes. They smoked it all night. I said, okay. Right, and I had an overtime officer that volunteered to work that block because our block was run good. And she was an old Holmesburg guard. And if you ever do the history of Holmesburg prison, it's probably the most ruthless prison you ever be in your life. They call it Gladiator School. The warden, so CFCF is named after a warden and deputy warden. They were killed at Holmesburg prison by the one inmate, Bomar. Stabbed them to death, both of them. So she was an old Holmesburg guard, and she loved working with me if that slot was open. So I said, listen, I'm going up to 19 cell. All right, I said, just keep an eye. Everything's going to be cool. Go in 19 cell. He's up on the top bunk because he's brand new. He was a brand new dude. And his cellie was at the bottom. I told his cellie, get the fuck out. Closed the door. I said, hop up, man. And he just looked at me. Said, you took my shit. I said, put your hands up. And we just went. Got done. Went downstairs. Had a little bit of blood. Went in the bathroom. Cleaned it up. My partner was like, everything all right? I said, everything's cool. Right? So she goes like this to me. She goes, there's a lot of tension in here right now. She's like, right? She's like, I don't feel so good. She actually went home sick that day.
No, she's not reporting it at all?
Nah.
They know better than to do
She's
that?
an old Holmesburg guard.
Okay.
The history of Holmesburg is that's how that prison was ran.
Now, if you had someone that was maybe a newer guard on the block, would you have done the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you wouldn't have cared, even if they reported you, or?
Nah. You know what? Back then, right? Back then. So this was 90, 98. This was like 99. Back then, prison was prison.
It was a different era.
Yeah. So you had dudes that were locked up from the 60s and 70s still coming to jail, and they ran through Holmesburg. So CFCF opened up, I think it was like 95. So we actually still had some inmates that were in Holmesburg still waiting for trial that were at CFCF. And that was the mentality, how it was in Holmesburg. Like, guards and inmates were alpha male mentality, No one reported. You don't report that. It's like you don't snitch, Is it illegal? Probably, But you gotta, just like the inmates, the CO's got to survive in there too, know?
Now, if you didn't do that to gain the respect, what would have happened to you as a new guy in the unit?
I would have gotten no respect. I would have been having a hard time for the rest of my career there, I would have tell an inmate what to, not what to do, tell him to do something or, and he'd be like, go F yourself, Smitty, So what are you going to do, write him up for 3 days in a hole, 7 days in a hole for disrespect of that? Nah. So now the inmates know, be like, yo, you're going to disrespect Smitty, Smitty's going to go in the cell. You got to have that. You got to do that. Nowadays, inmates snitch. They write that pre-act, whatever, After I got hurt in the line of duty as a cop, your medical benefits run out. I was looking for a job. My buddy was a lieutenant at Graterford. And he said, yo, why don't you apply to be a kitchen officer at Graterford? And Graterford was a supermax prison, old school gladiator, school stabbings, fights, the whole 9 yards, right? I was like, I don't know, man. It was like I was a cop, I go in there, I might run into people that I locked up. I took away their freedom. They're in here because of me, Nah, you're going to be all right. It's been a while on all this. I was like, I don't know. I thought about it, and I was like, hell with it. I'm going to do it. So he tells me, he goes, listen, prison's not like how it was when you started out at, right? And I said to him, I'm going in there as a man. I'm coming out as a man. I'm going to do the same thing that I did when I worked at CFCF. That's the only way I know. I was taught by old school guards, He was like, all right. Like, he was like mad, but I'm not going with that new school stuff. If I tell an inmate, this, and he goes off on me or something, I'm like, yo, you keep it up, I'm going to kick your ass, or I'm going to stick my foot up your ass, and he puts a PREA thing on me and sexual harassment, oh, well, they fire me. Like, I still, I still have pride, So the first week of orientation, I'm in there, right? And I'm looking all around. I'm scoping. There's 3,600 convicts in this state prison, right? So I'm looking all around, and I'm in the kitchen, and I was like, damn, there's a dude from CFCF. This is like, what, 20-some years later, serving life in prison. He was one of my workers when I was on D1 Rover, right? And he sees me, he recognizes me. Then I have another dude come up to me. He's like, yo, you look like a cop from North Central. And like, I had to keep a straight face. I was like, nah, you got the wrong guy. Nah, you look like a cop from North Central. That dude recognized me, right? So I was like, nah, that ain't me, right? So I said, look, I called the guy over, right? I said, come over here. Tell him who I am, right? Because I'm not, that's Smitty. He worked at CFCF. He was there when I got sentenced. Oh, all right. So I turn it around. I'd be like, what, all white guys look alike? Right? And he's like, no, I don't mean it like that. I was like, that's what I think you're saying, right? So everything was squashed from that moment, you know? So working the prison, I'm in the kitchen, and I'm on the news side. So my buddy, who's a lieutenant there, you know, you always have some inmates that are cool, some convicts that are cool with you and stuff like that, right? And he told this one guy who's a shot caller of the Bloods. He's an OG. He's from Western PA, right? He was probably about 6'3", 6'4", chiseled, working out. He was on a powerlifting team, like big as hell, right? And he's like, you know, he worked in the kitchen, and he looked out. You know, he looked out for me. He looked out, like, make things easy for me, you could say, right? So we're on the line, and he got ticked off about something, and he walked off the line while we were serving. And I was like, yo, man, I was like, where you going? He's like, man, I'm done. I'm not working that right now. And it was like right in the middle of a meal, right? So it ticked me off, and the other convicts looked at me, you know? So I was like, all right. So he rolled out. And on the news side where we were at, there was open movement where that door was open so they can just go back to their blocks, right? So the next day, I said, yo, come with me. And we go into the closet. And he's like, we're really going to go? I was like, I can't have you disrespect me. And I ain't going to lie. At this point, I'm 40-something years old. He's 30. I'm scared, you know, because I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. I have a plan what I'm going to do, but, you know, it's like what Mike Tyson says. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, you know? So we squared up, and he said, we're really going to do it. I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I can't have you disrespect me in front of everybody like that. And then he was like, nah, we ain't going to do nothing. I was like, you got my respect with this, you know? So we walked out of the closet. Everybody looked. Nothing was said. That guy, me and him, were like this. Like, we were, any type of problem I ever had, he had, like, if I went after a dude or something like that, he had that dude come back to me to apologize. And this is a shot caller from the Bloods that was doing this, right? I also looked out for him, though. So some guy beat him for a TV, right? And goes in his cell, body beats him, whatever, and hurts his finger. Comes down in the kitchen, he's like, Smitty, hurt my finger, I can't go to medical because I'm in a gang unit, they're going to investigate, I'm going to be put in a hole. I was like, all right. He goes, can you give me something simple to do? So I was like, yeah, work the meat slicer. So he worked the meat slicer. Somehow he cut his finger, and he went down to medical and got his finger fixed, you know? So I can't believe he did that, but he didn't get no investigation. So when I was going to day shift, because my shift at that time was 12 noon to 8 p.m., day shift, that's where I wanted to be, 4:30 a.m. to be there to 12:30. He found out I was going to day shift. He goes, listen, I have a boy that's down there. He's a cook in the main kitchen. We had 2 kitchens. In the main kitchen, he goes, he's going to look out for you. He's going to make things easy for you. And to be honest, the people in the kitchen, you know, we supervise, but they're the ones who work to get that, make you look good, you know? So said he was on death row. He had 4 bodies on him. He was on death row since the 80s. He had 4 bodies on him. He got off death row. Good dude. He's going to look out. My first day on day shift from 4:30 to 12:30. It was Sunday morning. The convicts come down at 5 a.m. and he sees me. He goes, "You Smitty?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You know, I'm so-and-so." I was like, "All right." He goes, told me to look out for you. I was like, "All right." So we got to talking, and, you know, he had 4 bodies, and he's like, "I'm going to get out from prison." And I looked at him. I was like, "You have 4 bodies. How the heck you getting out?" He got out 2 years ago. He went to a funeral, and they killed him right at the cemetery.
He killed them?
Someone killed him right at the cemetery.
Oh, wow.
He was out for 1 year. Like, someone kept that for 30-some years. Like, they waited. And, you know, it was crazy because me and him would talk, and he was like, "Yeah," he goes, "when I was on death row, I never touched my kids, none of that. You know, I have grandkids." And when he got off death row, it was the first time he was able to touch his kids and his grandkids and all, you know. He was already in his 60s. So whoever had that vendetta against him, they waited 30-some years to get even.
Wow.
Killed him right on that 33rd Street, right? Funeral.
So what, does conviction get overturned or something? That's how he got out?
Yep. 4 bodies. He was like a major drug dealer in Germantown and all. Some of the convicts I came across that was famous, one was the singer from the Tramps, that song Disco Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he came to CFCF for attempted murder of his wife. All over the news. Like, he grabbed her head. He thought she was cheating on him. Grabbed her head and just hit it against the bathroom tiles where all the bathroom tiles broke. She ended up getting like 100 staples in her head, right? But it was crazy because she would still come and visit him. So he ended up getting 25 years, but he found out I was getting married. And this is back in 2000, and he says, "Smitty, I heard you getting married." And I was like, yeah. And, you know, goes, "I just wish you better luck than you in your marriage that I had in mine." I was like, "Thanks, Jer." You know, like, it was like crazy things like that. And then the heavyweight, the guy who fought Evander Holyfield, Burt Cooper, right? Unfortunately, he had a little bit of a drug problem, and he had a carjacking. He was in CFCF. This dude went 10 rounds. Like, he went the distance with Evander Holyfield for the belt. He was at CFCF. So he actually called the woman CO a bitch, right? At this time, I'm D1 Rover. So D1 Rover is, you know, the one who comes to all the responses and stuff like that. So my Sarge, she gets me, and she's like, "Smitty, we're going upstairs." I was like, "All right." She doesn't tell me. Go upstairs, we go up to D2, and she calls Burt Cooper. Comes right to the front, and I'm looking at his hands, and he has bear paws. His hands are humongous. If anyone knows about anything about Burt Cooper, they will say he's probably was one of the strongest boxers. The guy was picking up. He's from Delaware County. He would pick up transmissions and just work out with them, right, on the street. So she said to him, "What did you call my CO, my officer?" And he didn't say nothing. She goes, "Okay." And then next thing you know, she did what she did. And he was like, "Sarge, I apologize. I'll never say that again." I ain't gonna lie. That one time I saw my soul leave my body, because if he would have retaliated, I wouldn't know what the heck I would have done. By the time the response would have been up there, they probably would have been already, like, putting on my burial. I mean, he was that big and strong, that, you know, because he got his weight up. Like, it was just, but that's how it was back then, you know?
Do you think those shot callers, when you went to that latest prison, they never experienced a guard like you before?
Nah, no way.
You were a
way.
different type of breed.
Yeah, it was just because, I ain't gonna lie, it's from that guy that had, that, you know, took me under his wing. He actually so he worked on day shift, but he would always do doubles. So during my lunch break, we'll do push-ups, right? I never experienced it like that. So we did 800 push-ups in 20 minutes. My arms were dead tired. And he said to me, he goes, this is how they work out all day. Like, they fill up those water bags and you're just curling, you know? And those water bags are heavy. They're like about almost 100 pounds, one of those big trash can bags, you know? And he goes, this is how they survive, you know? You survive out there working out just to stay fit. They survive in here to stay alive, you know? You fight, you get in a fight on the outside, it's just a regular fist fight, 15 seconds. You fight in there, you slip, whatever, you're going to get curbed. You're going to get kicked in the head, you know? You gotta be fit. You gotta be strong. So then after work, we would box in the roll call room. I'll bring my gloves. He has his gloves, and we'll just spar, me and him. Like, I don't know why he took a liking to me the way he did, but I guess he saw something. Maybe because, you know, I was on his block from 3 to 11, so 7 to 3 to 3 to 11. That block was ran good between him and I. The mad respect that guy had from all the inmates was incredible. So we had a guy on the block that was in a multi-purpose room. He was 7'3", right? So when he would come from like court or something like that, we would, you know, you have to be patted down. I would have to tell this dude he has to bend down so I can, you know, pat him down the right way. You know, no wax in the middle of your back, nothing like that, right? So he was a goofy guy, but he was 7'3", probably weighed about 300 and some pounds. So he was a multi-purpose room. There was this dude from Albania, from Kensington, short guy, he probably weighed 120 pounds. He was a cellie with 4 other dudes. So this happened on Last Out. So next thing you know, they see this 7'3" guy getting chased by this little guy with a whack, right? Running around the block. Response team's called. They get the guy, they get both of them. They find out the dude was going to try to rape him. And the cellies, the 4 other dudes, was going to let it happen. They didn't, because they were afraid of him. So this officer got wind of it the next day. And he went in his cell, and 4 of those guys paid. The big guy that was going to do the raping, he got put in a hole. The little guy was still on the block. And he even had the whack. And they just took the whack away, you know? That's how it was ran back in the 90s.
In the 90s, were there shot callers back then? Was that a thing?
In the state prisons, yeah. Well, yeah, in there. So you had, it's funny, like Philadelphia, for the most part, there's no Bloods, there's no Crips, there's Latin Kings. You got some that are Nieta, which is a Puerto Rican prison gang. Of course, you got your 1%ers, but that's it. There ain't, everything else is neighborhoods. So it's North Philly, South Philly, West Philly, you know? Then you break it down to even more of the neighborhood you grew up in, the streets, you know, 17th and Jeff, 19th and Oxford, 27th and Thompson, you know, or 29th and Thompson, 10th and Thompson, those type of things. So when you come in the jail, you're going to know people from your neighborhood, and that's how it is. Like the Bloods and the Crips will never, ever could survive in Philadelphia.
What about mobsters? Was it big back then?
Oh, mobsters were big. We had one. He was a rat, actually. he ended up in PC, and then he turned state. He's turned state and federal evidence, and he ended up in a federal detention center. Then went in a witness protection program. I believe, actually, I think he's out. If he's, I believe he's still alive. He's still out. But he was a mess. Like, that dude was just not what you think of a mobster. You know.
Most mob guys were probably federal too, right? They wouldn't even pass through the state.
Yep.
No.
He also was accused of a murder. This guy, the guy he was accused of murdering, ran into his parents' house and robbed them. And that dude, actually, they found him hogtied with $1 between his butt cheeks. Yeah. So I mean, that tells you, when you find $1 between your butt cheeks, when the cops find you, it means that it's for greed. You're greedy, you know. He was the only one. The other one was a 1%er, president of the Pagans. His nickname was Gorilla. He's still out. Like, I believe he's still running things with the Pagans. He was banned from them. He had problems with them, and then he just took over again. But his nickname was Gorilla, and that dude was built like a gorilla. Like, he was big as hell. But you had your Muslims, you had your Nation of Islam. Nation of Islam was back real big back in the 90s. And then you had your Muslims, you had your white boys from Kensington. They usually hung out with the Latinos from Kensington. They were like one group. And funny thing, I was like, this is when one of the first I started, I was in C building, and a Latino had a problem with this black dude. And the Latino bitch slapped him. Right out in the day room. And I said, yo, take that shit in the cell, right? So they went in the cell. Latino made the stupidest mistake, though. He went in the cell first with his back turned towards the guy. And the guy just bum rushed him right at the doorway and whooped his ass. Everybody was starting to look at that cell door, and I was like, so how CFCF is like the front of it is all plexiglass. So center control can see into the blocks. And I had to tell them, like, stop looking in the cell door, you know, because you're drawing on the center control officer. They're going to know that there's something going on. So after that happened, it was squashed. There was no problems, you know, because they settled it like men. Before that, it was crazy. There was a lot of tension. You could feel it in the air because you had all the blacks on one side of the block, and then it was the Latinos and the whites on the other side. So no doubt, if they didn't fight, they would have just went to war, you know? And that's why you let them be men and let them handle their things.
What was the most dangerous group of individuals you encountered?
In the county, it was probably Nation of Islam. They, very radical group, especially during Ramadan. And this is back, 98, 99. They were just, they were just ignorant. They were just, you find out later when I got to state prison that the Muslims, the Sunni Muslims, don't have no respect for the one Nation of Islam. They consider them a radical group. They don't even associate with them. During Ramadan, they don't even together. So the Muslims would do all their sahura bags and everything and have their own food, and they don't associate with the Nation of Islam. Now, back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, Nation of Islam in Graterford, from what I was told, was humongous. A lot of them were on death row. They would, like, from inmates that I talked to that were on death row that got off, they said if you were a black male and you got on there, got on the row, they would, like, brainwash you. about the government, about white people. They would just keep on at it, like propaganda, like you're in Vietnam in a prisoner of war camp. They would just chant that all day long. And in state prison, they were the biggest booty bandits. Every one of them that were in there was almost for rape, and they were raping other inmates. There was a couple that were cool, but for the most part, they were just, now I would probably say there's in Phoenix, in SCI Phoenix, there's probably about 30 of them. Where back in the day, it was like half the prison. Most of those inmates that were NOI ended up becoming Sunni Muslims.
How would you handle a booty bandit if you heard wind of one?
Oh, it's funny you say that. So this is right before the pandemic, I believe. And I don't know if you remember, there was a riot in a prison in Delaware.
I think it was in the news, right?
Yeah,
okay.
And the sergeant that was part of the in the restricted housing unit was killed. They brutalized him. They didn't even say what they did, but you already know. If they didn't give the specifics, they, did everything. So they transferred a lot of those inmates out of that prison. So Graterford and Phoenix actually got, well, I keep saying that is because Graterford closed down in 2018 and we moved to Phoenix, which was the biggest prison move in Pennsylvania history. We had state troopers flying over, like they locked down every prison in the state. They brought all the guards because they had to move, 3,000 inmates into Phoenix. They never done that before, So there was this young buck from Delaware, from that prison, and he was up here, right? So I'm on the line at Phoenix, right? And this dude who was a booty bandit, Muslim dude, I never suspected he was a booty bandit. He's been locked down for about 40 years already, right? He worked in the kitchen also. I never knew he was a booty bandit, right? And he looks at the young buck with a smile on his face. And all the other inmates on the line were like looking around, and I peep everything. I see everything, and I see it, and I'm like, what the hell is that guy smiling at him for, right? So I was like, you know that dude? And he's like, nah. When we were in the dining hall, he asked me if I wanted his cake, and I took his cake, and I was like, are you crazy? I was like, why the hell would you take his cake? He was like, well, he offered it to me. I was like, you don't accept nothing for free. There's a reason why he gave you that cake, because he's about to take yours, And he's like, what? I was like, you don't know this dude. He gives you a cake. Like, I'm a CO telling him this, because I don't like dudes getting preyed on, like the weaker inmates. And this dude wasn't a bad dude. Like, he wasn't a piece of shit or nothing like that. He was a young buck. He was only 20 years old. He's like, well, what am I supposed to do? I was like, well, if it happens again, you tell him no, and if he keeps on forcing it, you got to do what you got to do, right? And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah. Like, this is a CO telling him how to live life in prison, And he's like, all right. So then the pandemic happened. So everything got locked down. I ended up getting hernia surgery anyway also. So by the time I got out, we were still locked down. I would say probably for like 2 months we were locked down. So no inmates, no inmate movement, no convict movement, no nothing, right? So it was all the COs, kitchen officers. It was the social workers, everybody making bags, food and all this, right? And then right when they started opening up the jail, they only gave us like 35 kitchen workers where we needed 100. So the booty bandit guy never came back down, So I don't know whatever happened, but it was just back in the day. There was a lot of booty bandits, and they were shower sharks.
Shower sharks.
Yeah, So at Graterford, there were communal showers on the block. A block had 800 inmates on it, and it was like probably 200 yards long, right? I mean, it's frightening. You walk down there the first time, you're like, shit, you know? So they would, and to this day, the shower sharks would just stand there waiting, you know? You don't go in there alone because you're going to get your cheeks taken, you know? Yeah, like it was that type of world in Graterford back in the day.
Is that where you think the term like "don't drop the soap" comes from?
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt. Like, I couldn't even imagine being locked up back then. Like, you know, what it would be like, you know. You usually know people, you know. Here's another one. So I'm on the new side of Graterford, and I'm walking. The kitchen officers, you normally don't do that because you have people that steal trays, you know, or double back and get another tray. You know what? If the dude would ask me like, "Yo, can I get something extra, or could I get another tray?" My workers will give him something extra, or give him another tray. Don't try to be slick and try to take it, you know. Don't try to come up. Don't lie. I'm not about that. So I would stand out there in the dining hall. And I'm the only blue shirt that would do that. Man, a couple others did it too, but they've been around for 20-some years. So I'm out there and I see this tall redhead. And I'm like, Galen? My nephew. He's like, Uncle Mike, I'm sorry, right? And I'm like, fuck. I said, listen, I'm going to call your mom tonight, and I'm going to tell her how to survive in this place. In the meantime, you don't take nothing from nobody, right? So I talked to his mom that night, and I gave her all the rules, you know, because he was a good-looking kid, redhead, tall, 6'2". He had to do 2 years. And I told her, I was like, he has to stick with his own kind, meaning stick with the whites. You don't know any blacks. You don't know any Latinos. You don't know any other races. He was a white boy from Northeast Philly. You don't know any. He never hung out like that. So I said to her, he don't accept nothing from anybody. I said, I'm going to have somebody look after him, because the reason why, there was a booty bandit named Cyrus, and he was a straight up piece of shit guy from Lehigh County. Every time I would see him, I call him an asshole. I just didn't like him. What he did was absolutely disgusting. His crime, him and his rappy, and it was on his rappy's family. So Cyrus and his rappy broke into his parents' house, had the dad and mom at gunpoint sit in chairs, and then he rapes the mom in front of the husband and his rappy. And his rappy didn't do nothing. The dude was watching his mom get raped by this piece of shit. Then he shoots the dad in the head, and then he shoots the mother in the head. He gets double life. He's in prison. He's in there, and he's a booty bandit. So he already took this one kid, where the kid ended up getting a tattoo of Cyrus on his arm, right? And another one that looked just like him comes in, and Cyrus was going after him. That dude that he was married to was so brokenhearted about it, he tried to hang himself. And they put Cyrus, they were going to move Cyrus to another prison. They had to get room. So on the new side of Graterford, like I said, there's open movement like crazy between the blocks. And you had your gang unit, you had your crazies in there on one block, and then you had the new commits. So I went to the shot caller of Bloods, and I said, listen, my nephew in here, I need Cyrus to stay away from this dude. Like, I don't want him around him, nothing. He's like, Smitty, I got you. Don't worry about a thing. I said, he's going to be going to Camp Hill soon. So, and then he'll find his home. And he was probably in Greater Fur for like 2 months. So I would peep out the window, see how he's doing in the yard. And he was doing everything I said. And then he made it to Camp Hill. And then he got out. And unfortunately, they went to a halfway house and he overdosed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Great kid. He just had a drug problem, Kid had a heart of gold. Sad. Very sad. But I did what I did. Now, I could have gotten in trouble for it because I was supposed to report it. But
Report that you knew him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were supposed to separate.
That's what happened to me. A guard reported that I dated his cousin, and
Right.
they locked me in the hole for that because they had to remove me from the compound.
Right. And is that when they had you in Con Air and stuff like
That's
that?
when, because
Yeah.
my attorney was calling, my dad was calling, like, what the fuck's going on?
Right.
Because they put in, there's no protective custody, anything in the feds. It's all
Right.
the same.
Right.
They send you to they just label you differently, whether it's admin or whatever they stick you under.
Right.
So you're still in this. I was with guys that were under investigation. I was with guys that got into fights, stabbings, whatever, in the same spot.
Right.
They put me in with chomos all the time, like just all this crazy shit. And I was just there all because a guard knew me.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And they put me on Con Air.
Yeah. I mean, I ran, when I was at CFCF, another nephew, just on my wife's side, piece of shit. Like
The nephew was a piece of shit.
This other one, they're
Okay.
actually brothers.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, I didn't like him. Everything that he's done, he robbed my wife like when she was younger, sold her, like robbed her when she was a teenager, and sold everything that she had, hocked all her jewelry, everything, right? So, and this is her nephew, right? They were about the same age, and there he is at CFCF. He's in protected custody. Why he's in protected custody is because he was beating people on the block with medication, right? So he was taking their money, but he wasn't delivering the medication back to them, what they wanted. Because if you're not if you're not mentally ill and you take those drugs, you get high off of that stuff, like the Cinequans and all the other stuff they take. So that's what he was doing. He was running that game. So he ended up in protected custody. And he comes up to me, and he's like, yo, can you bring in some stuff? And I'd lost it. Choked him. Picked him up and choked him right on the wall. Said, don't you ever fucking ask me that shit again. And I threw him. I called up my same lady, right? I told her, he already had called his mom, right? Or he called his mom on me, right? Like, really? So I talked to my sister-in-law. I said, he ever asked me that again, he'll go home in a body bag. Ain't no big deal, One thing about me, I have respect for myself. I've had inmates ask me to bring in things, and I treated every single one of them the same way. And it was always the white dudes. No, like that shot caller, right? He did me a favor with my nephew. Didn't ask a goddamn thing from me. That's what I respect. No other race ever asked me to bring in something. It was always the white dudes. And I look at them like they're pieces of shit. Like, don't ask me that. I'm not risking my life. Not risking my money that I'm making. I'm not risking me being on the front page of the Daily News or the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm not doing that. You got yourself in that situation. You own it, So he ended up going to state prison anyway later on.
Did you ever see any escapes in the max back then? Because I'm sure security measures were a lot laxed.
Nah. Back then,
Yeah.
You know what it is? Back then, there was a work ethic. The work ethic now, like the escapes at CFCF now, they got bums working in there, most of them.
That's why people are able to escape.
Yeah.
But
Everything
the security is strong. Technology is stronger, right?
in the city of Philadelphia, I think the cameras weren't working. Like the two that were The one dude that escaped over the summer, he killed the guy right at the front gates of CFCF. It was on the news. He shot the guy right when he got out. And he also had another body. He killed the guy and he posted on Instagram or something. He was one of the dudes that escaped from Pick. And it was because of lackadaisical COs, you know? I don't think they understand what these dudes will do, you know? It's back then you had pride in your job. I don't think a lot of them don't have pride in their job in the city.
Do you think there's such thing as an unescapable prison? Like, if there's a way, do you think someone will figure it out?
I think the one prison I think no one will ever escape from is that Supermax in Florence.
The Fed one?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's below ground.
Yep. Yeah. That and that Dolphin prison in Russia.
Yeah, that's great. The Russia's crazy.
Yeah, like they're blindfolded, they walk hunched over, they got to stand all day long. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I was reading that article
Yeah.
of how they're treated. It's on TikTok. They do like those B-roll clips of it.
Yeah, I don't know how, and it's 1-to-1, so it's one guard to every one inmate. You know, where over here it's not like that at all.
In the Feds, it's like 400 to 1. In the lows at the camp, it was 130 to 1.
Really?
It's at the units. Yeah, at the low at Fort Dix, there was
Right.
like 400 men in a unit, and there would just be one CO.
Yeah, like at Graterford, for 800 on the block, I think there was like 6, one supervisor and then 5 officers.
And you don't think that's enough?
Oh, that's definitely not enough. Like, just for as in officer safety, you know. Excuse me. Those convicts, they can take over any jail they want if they wanted to. I mean, it happened at Camp Hill, you know, back in, what was it, 87 when they had the riots. And it's a crazy thing about that. There was one CO, it's always on the, they always play it on the video. A inmate actually showed him a way to escape from the riot, and he was on top of the roof, and nothing would happen to him at all. I would say when I worked at Graterford, if there was ever a riot, there was three convicts. If they said, Smitty, go this way, I would go that way. One of them was a shot caller. One of them just got out for murder now. I'm actually friends with him on Facebook right now. Like, this dude, he did what he did. He did, you know, he had a murder, but he did his time. He was a convict, but, you know, me and him talked a lot, you know. And another guy, I'm not going to mention his name. He's still in Phoenix. But those 3 guys, if they said, Smitty, go this way, everything's going to be all right, I would trust them and go that way. The only 3 dudes, though, like, in my whole career that I would trust in a situation like that.
Do you feel like that was not doing your job, though, by going a different way?
When a riot goes out like that and everything's taken over, you know, and there's only 2 COs, like, you ain't fighting
There's
300-400 dudes, you know. You know, what are you gonna do? Be held hostage, and then just like me being an ex-cop, you know. So when I was on the news side, when I was on the second shift, 12 to 8, there was rumors of me going around that I was a cop, right? So how I wanted to handle it was confront them. But that one dude that I said that I trusted, he actually said to me, he goes, Smitty, he goes, this dude's been down for 30-some years, been down since the 80s. You know, he was real radical back then. Let it die down. You let it die down, everybody's going to forget about it. It's just a rumor, right? You know, but he knew I was one, right? He knew that I was a cop. And I was like, all right. I took his advice, and it actually worked. Like, it died down, never was brought up again, you know, because I gained the trust of those dudes. and that rumor went around, and it doesn't look good, So the reason why I resigned from Phoenix in 2020 during the George Floyd riots, my coworkers ended up telling all the convicts that I was a cop, Philly cop. I had a child molester come up to me, one of the workers, and we're in the back of the kitchen by the dock. There's no cameras around there in that one area. Smitty, I heard you were a Philly cop, right? And this dude molested I think it was like an 8-year-old girl, right? And I looked at him, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I squeezed it, and I said, you tell anybody, be your last breath. Like, I'm not playing. I said, who told you this? And he wouldn't tell me, my coworker who told me. He wouldn't tell me, the blue shirt. I was like, who the fuck told me? Because I was going to meet that guy in the parking lot in our locker room, and I was going to tear his ass up, because now you're putting my life on the line. He never told me, and then I thought real hard. I took a little bit of leave from work. I said, is it worth it? I'm 40-something years old. I'm not that 20-some-year-old guy. If I get in a fight, get jumped, whatever, are they going to take their time getting to me because they don't like cops now because of the George Floyd riots, It was a whole bunch. And then I was seeing all these posts on Facebook, and a dude that I broke bread with in the academy and a dude that I broke bread with in Graterford, we were real cool together, and he was in the military. And he's writing all this shit about 9/11, F the cops and F this. I was like, what? So I resigned. And they asked me why I resigned. I just said, it's sad when I trust the convicts more than I trust my coworkers. What do you mean? And I told them about, some things. Well, who wrote it? I said, I don't say names. I ain't say no names. I was like, but you should watch who you hire. And I resigned, Luckily, I resigned because I got the best job in the world at what I do now, my dream job, like my ultimate dream job. So everything works out for a reason. Life happens,
What is your dream job now?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Train fighters, boxers, strength and conditioning and all that. So manage the gym. I work with great people. Bosses are great. I couldn't ask for a better job. I enjoy it. So when I got this job, people were saying, if you enjoy your job, it's not like you ever going to work ever again. I haven't worked ever again.
That's awesome.
It's just something I love. And how I incorporate, how I train fighters is like a convict. Honest to God. And the results are crazy because then I explain to them how convicts work out, and they don't get it. It's a lot of repetitions, and sets. I was like, you don't understand. So I'm 50 now, right? Last year I did 1,200 push-ups in 45 minutes. Just, you don't hear that. I found out the record, though, for 1 hour is 3,000. I'm never going to hit that. But that's how I work everybody out, like a convict.
Do you think you could get ripped just off a straight body weight?
Oh, yeah. With calisthenics and all that?
Do you
Absolutely.
need weights?
Nah. If you eat right, plus, what you get in prison, you get the right amount of food. If you get commissary, you can get there's some big dudes
eat the fish pouches, the tunas.
Oh yeah, there's tuna. There's tuna or albacore.
I would mix some tuna with some mayo and mackerel. Mix it together in a bowl, some saltines.
Yeah, you eat that all day long.
Peanut butter, oatmeal.
Peanut butter, yep.
Yeah, oatmeal. That's the trick in prison. They all say oatmeal will blow up your arms.
Yeah,
that's what they say.
Yeah, or even like the I love prison grits.
Grits, really? The ones they made at the...
Yeah.
You probably... There
Prison
would always
grits.
be the guards, the jack guards that would eat the oatmeal and the grits at the
Yeah.
prison every day.
Yeah. The grits, man. Oh my God, they were delicious. To have that with the fried eggs, like we'll have eggs on Sunday.
Oh, you guys had fried eggs?
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't get that.
No?
We had scrambled out of the bag shit. Wasn't
Oh,
that
no,
good?
we didn't have no scramble. It was always fried eggs. And then Sundays was also chicken. So it's funny because the convicts on death row, they couldn't get the chicken bones. So we had to strip the meat off the chicken bones.
Why? Because they would make it a
Make the
shank?
wax. Yeah,
Holy shit.
yeah.
What was it like working with death row inmates?
The former death row inmates, ready for this? One of them was one of my jobs when I was a cop. He didn't know it, though. I was on the crime scene of it, 12th and Girard, Rite Aid manager, shotgun blast. He was the guy. He never knew it. I knew it. He got off death row, though. And we used to talk. Just got to do with her out there, you know. It was a very heinous crime, like what happened. But he was a hell of an athlete also. Another one of the guys on death row is because of me. That's why I was so particular about them not finding out. He's still in there. Actually, they made a documentary about him. It was on the Oprah channel or something like that. The hit that wasn't. He was the hitman. The guy who ordered the hits was the one who had the triple homicide. And he's the reason why he's serving life. And he was one of my workers at CFCF. I knew his street name. That's how he got caught. That was a scary moment, you could say, because the witnesses were getting killed. They were coming off from the airport in the hotel, finding out, and he was getting killed. The other witness left the Poppy store at 15th and Styles, and he got ambushed by the guy that's serving time now on death row. That was like, that's why I was real quiet to who I was.
Why do you leave corrections to become a cop?
Honestly, to be a cop, I wanted to help out the neighborhood. My thing was be a role model. That was my thing. I wanted to be a role model for kids. So cops get a bad rap, and it really ticks me off. Like they don't understand the things. So before all the social media, the cameras and the videos, all the stuff that you see on TV, I mean, like the news, like cops doing nice things and stuff like that, it's been going on for years and years and years. You know, in the 23rd, we collect money for a family that can't afford Christmas presents for their kids, you know. Plenty of times that we would go stop patrolling and play with kids shooting a basketball, having a football catch, you know. I wanted to be a role model for the kids. Like, a lot of those kids don't have a role model. And people like, why did you love working North Philly? Like, it's the ghetto. That's what they would say, it's the ghetto, right? So you do it for the people that work there, that live there, the ones that don't have a say, the ones that can't get out of their house because they're shooting all the time, you know? You do it for them. One time I had a foot beat. Me and my partner, they had shooting corner beats. So usually do that if there's a lot of shootings on that corner, neighborhoods going to war, the drug dealers and everything. So I'm out there on foot beat, and the kids were playing. And that's the only time you ever see kids play out in the street, if you see a cop there, because they feel safe. So I play kickball with them. Ice cream guy comes around. I bought them all ice cream and stuff like that. We're eating ice cream. I got some on my uniform. Like, and now I'm skitzing because, you know how I said, like, I'm all starched up, gig line, pressed, and I got ice cream. I look like a slob now, you know. So it's later at night, and the guy walks past me, doesn't even stop, and he says, there's going to be a guy on a bike that's going to shoot up the house on 1700 Newkirk Street. I was like, okay, right? The guy on the bike was actually a guy that was wanted for murder. He was trying to kill the witness now. So I called my partner, and I called my sergeant, and I tell him, right? and it was supposed to happen like around, it was like 8:30 at night. Well, here comes the dude on a bike coming by 27th Montgomery, coming around. My partner sees him, and he's goes over radio and tells me, and he's coming down Newkirk Street, and I'm running up, right, towards him, and he's on a bike, and he sees me, and then he takes off, and then I couldn't catch him on a damn bike, So we let third shift know what just happened, and it was the kid was only 17, wanted for murder, and he ended up shooting up the house later on. Like, it was like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. He shot up the witness house to the murder that he did. But he ended up getting caught and stuff like that. Here's another one. We go to the high-rise projects at 10th and Thompson, right? So it was a domestic call, and it was a woman who got beat up by her son, slapped by her son. Son's not there. We tell her she's got to come down to detectives, and she's like, "Nah, I don't want to press charges." I was like, all right, like, then, you have to sign a 48 that we advised you to go and all that. So we're leaving. It's 9:30 at night in the projects, and there was 2 kids playing football, right? And I got in the catch. I'm having a catch with them, right? And radio goes over the air. It's like 23 times 6. I'm like, we answer 23. Can you contact headquarters? So we contact headquarters, and they tell us to come in. And my sergeant's like, Smitty, were you having a football catch with a couple kids? I was like, yeah, why? He goes, someone made a complaint on you about a white cop having a football catch with black kids. I said, Sarge, guess what? I said, you're going to get that complaint every night because I'm going to have a catch with those kids every night. Like, it was 10 minutes of that kid's lives that they felt safe. They're having fun. Cops are not bad guys,
I think that's what's missing now, like community policing and
right.
being a part of it. I was just talking to a Las Vegas former police sergeant, and he said he'd always make his guys, go out there, work in the streets on foot patrol. That was a big, change. So there's like that dynamic.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have that as much anymore.
Nah. I know when I was on, like my squad, we did that. We played basketball with those kids. We had the football catches. We bought them ice cream. Halloween time, we had one officer that would give out Halloween candy from his patrol car, just drive around, Christmas time, candy canes. Sometimes we would actually use the speakers of our squad cars to blast Christmas music, just going around.
Now you got all these Karens that will complain, file a complaint, say their kid's getting fed poison or anything, any bullshit people come up with.
Yeah, like if I would never have gotten hurt as a cop, I probably would have been fired as a cop in 2020 during those riots.
Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you never became a cop to begin with and just stuck with corrections?
I would have been awarded. That was would have been my goal. To be awarded.
I've talked to a lot of inmates and a lot of officers. I've done almost like 150 interviews, and I got to say, they don't make them like you anymore. And my experience in prison would have been different had there been someone like you in there.
It's funny, like, so like how I said when I bust on inmates and stuff, there was this Jamaican dude, right? I called him Bushman because he was actually he came from the bush of Jamaica, right? And I used to mess with the Jamaicans like crazy because I would bring up Steven Seagal, right? And they I couldn't believe how pissed off they would get. I'd be like, I was like, you keep it up, I'll get Steven Seagal. And you're like, oh, Smitty, man. Steven Seagal, they weren't real Jamaicans. I was like, he whooped the shit out of Jamaican posse, right? And they would get so pissed off about that, right? So there's one guy, the Bushman. That's why I called him. I said, it's like, damn, man, you look familiar. He's like, in his Jamaican accent, he's like, Deuce, man. I was like, you look like my ex-girlfriend. Oh, F you, Smitty, you son of a bitch. Like, but it was like, we're laughing, That's how I would always, I'd mess with him all the time. And they bust on me back. I don't care if you were a former death row inmate, your lifer, whatever. That's how you make that 8 hours the easiest as can be. And I never had problems with convicts like other officers did, I let things slide. Like if they were sneaking shit out from the kitchen and stuff, you know what? They just made sure I didn't get short no trays. I feel it. I'm like, just roll out, man. I was like, I would tell them, just don't be greedy. Don't be like an asshole, you know? The one thing that irked the hell out of me would be scared COs. Scared COs, and I would call them inmate lovers. Ones that brought in stuff to the inmates, cell phones, cigarettes, all that, drugs. I had no respect for you. None. Like, that, you cross the line when you do that. Because now I know you really don't have my back, you know? If I get in a fight with the dude that you're fucking, and are you going to stand there or are you going to help me, you know? I just don't have any respect for that type of stuff. And the inmates that I was cool with, they knew where I drew the line at. Like, they get out of line, they know whose side I'm on. They respected that, you know? Just like if I respect them, the line that they got to live. It was just that mutual respect that we had for each other. But like the inmate love, and CF, there was a lot of females fucking those inmates.
Were there? Yeah.
Oh, it was disgusting.
What would you do if you found out one of your coworkers was doing that?
I always suspected, and my suspicions were always right, you know? I never caught them in the act, you know? I wouldn't, to be honest with you, I can't rat and I can't snitch. I just, I'm just not built that way. But if it was a male dude, I caught you, bringing in shit, I'm meeting you down in the locker room.
Squaring up?
Squaring up, and you better quit. Like, you're going to retire, you're going to quit. I ain't telling. Like, I'm not like that, you know? But the females, it was absolutely disgusting. There was one on my block, and me and this girl and a bunch of us would always go out, go to the clubs, everywhere, right? And it like broke my heart that I found out that she was fucking an inmate, you know? And the inmate, he was a young buck. He was 19 years old, but he was facing 1,100 years in prison. He was doing all these bar robberies, him and his rappy, right? The dude was real nice. He was real cool. And this was at CFCF, and she would always volunteer to work overtime on our block on D1 Pod 3. And we're like, all right, maybe because our block is ran tight, the guys know in the multi-purpose room, you're not going to play around. If you got to go to the bathroom, you go to the empty cell to go to the bathroom because you're not locked in. You're not getting hot water. They know that rule. So found out he gets sentenced for 25 to 50. He pled. His rap, he got 900 years, actually, because he also had a sexual assault. So she goes and visits him at Graterford, and that's how they got caught.
Wow.
And she got fired. And she was a veteran, too. She was in the Air Force. And when I found out, I was like, holy crap.
It's always the ones you least expect.
Yeah. I broke my hand on some dude's head because the CO that me and him were like cool. And it's funny because we would go out on smoke breaks during a lunch or whatever, and we'll talk shit. And he had 15 years on the job. And this was 5 days. No. It was my last day at the jail before I got married. I had days off, right? So it's 2000. So response to C building. And whose block it is. It's Lopez. And he is one officer for 64 inmates. So he's by himself. We get there, and his eyes cut open. I thought he was stabbed in the eye. That's how deep this cut was, right? So the dude was still in the cell. We get him. We start fighting and everything, right? And I break my knuckle. Boom, break my hand on his head. And he gets cuffed. Found out when I came back from my honeymoon, Lopez fired, right? I'm like, what the hell you get fired for? he beat the inmate's family on the streets. So the family gave him $400 to bring in cigarettes, and he never brought in the cigarettes. That's why the dude punched him in the head. So I couldn't shake my guest's hand because I couldn't go out medical because I would have to go see doctors, appointments, and all that. So I wouldn't be able to go on my honeymoon. I could still get married, but not go on my honeymoon. I was going to Hawaii. I wasn't giving that shit up,
Yeah.
So my hands are all swollen, and how they caught him was they patted all of us down, right? And he had all the cigarettes tied to his thighs.
Oh, wow.
And that's how he got caught.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest change that needs to be made in the criminal justice system? You've seen both sides of it. You've seen it from the cop side and you've seen it from the correctional officer side.
Change would be the court system. I think, especially in Philly, that guy Krasner, everyone knows about him. But they don't know the antics that he does, He'll for cases, he'll put an inexperienced lawyer on a case they never tried before, and they'll lose the case. So yeah, he does charge people, but he blows the court cases, so they don't get, they get found not guilty, Perfect example. My daughter's friend was shot in the head at a pool hall bar. They're at a bar. They're playing pool. She was an innocent bystander. She didn't even want to go out that night. She was a designated driver. They were only there for 20-some minutes at this bar, and there was an argument over this pool game. The guy goes out to his car and just starts shooting in the bar. She gets hit in the head, dead. That guy would have been still in jail. And how is because he raped his stepdaughter. And she had the text messages from her asking him, why did you do this? Don't tell anybody, yada, 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 all that, right? All these text messages. Well, what did Krasner do? He gave him a prosecutor that's never had that type of case before in his life. He was brand new, and he lost the case. That's how he got out in the streets, and then he ended up killing somebody. That's the biggest problem,
That happens in New York City all the time.
Right. It's that I understand rehabilitation, to be honest with you, I'm for it. At Graterford, what I want to say, at Graterford and Phoenix, you can get a college degree from Villanova University. You can get college degrees. You can get a barber's license. You can get an HVAC license. You can go into become a carpenter, electrician, chefs. Half the Suey chefs in Center City are former inmates in those famous restaurants in Center City in Philly, right?
And probably the hardest workers.
Right. And, from the culinary program, right? And they get certificates. So your degree doesn't say Department of Corrections. It says Bachelor of whatever, Villanova University. You even get a graduation. You get the little tassel turned to the side. The president of Villanova comes. I've seen it.
That's awesome.
Right. The family comes and you get degrees. You know who goes for all the degrees? The lifers. They have Villanova degrees, right? The ones that got sentenced 10 years, 8 years, they don't even go for it. They sit on the block all day, They get jobs just to get jobs, make 19 cents an hour, They can go in the kitchen, you can go up to, I think you can max out at 53 cents an hour, but no one takes advantage of doing anything, So all those people you hear, I only can speak for Pennsylvania. All those people you hear be like, yo, prison doesn't offer nothing. You can get a damn college degree if you want to. You can get certificates from Temple University for free. A $200,000 education you can get for free, and they don't take advantage of it, And I've met plenty of dudes that got Villanova. They went to Villanova. But like I said, all of them are lifers, you know? We actually had the distinction of the oldest juvenile lifer in United States history. That was at Graterford. And he's out now. And there was a crazy story about that. He got locked up when he was 14 years old. It was 1950s, I think it was. So he actually did 69 years in prison. Got locked up when he was 14 for murder. He was in Eastern State Penitentiary. That's not even, it's a museum now at 19 on Fairmount Ave. And when they passed the juvenile lifer law, he was one of the first ones. And he declined to leave because he had nobody out there. All he knew was jail life. You know what broke him? Was when he got transferred to Phoenix, when Graterford closed and there ain't no movement in Phoenix. And he was like, I'm out. Joe Legion is his name. And I used to look out for him. Like, that guy was 80-something years old, and he was still fit. He still worked out. He still worked. Like, he would do the back of B block, he would mop all the, where the old kitchen, the mess hall was. And I always would look out for him. So when we would have to go all the way up to E block, right down this corridor, past all the other blocks, because on E block, you still eat on the block in the back. He would clean that whole corridor. So it was like about 200 yards long. So I always said to my workers on E block, I said, listen, any extra food, Joe wants it, give it to him. He spent 69 years in prison, 60-some years at that time. He's earned it, Always look out for him. Another funny thing was my shamrock right here, right? So it's a Irish saying, Chucky Arla, our day will come between Northern Ireland, Ireland being united. So in Pennsylvania, like the state prisons, there ain't that many ABs, Aryan Brotherhood. They're mostly a federal gang, you could say, right? So we had two of them in Graterford. The one guy, I believe he came from the feds and he still owed state time, right? So he saw this and he thought I was an AB. And I said, come on, man, ABs have 666 and it's color green, right? And then he takes off his shirt and he has this big German tank on his back and AB tattoos and stuff like that. I was like, all right, this dude the real deal. Like, he ain't frauding on nobody, He never had any problems. Then when I got to Phoenix, dude comes up to me, looks at my arm and goes, you AB? I was like, what the fuck you talking about? Like, why? Right? And he shows me his tattoos. I was like, then you know I ain't one, right? And he had a southern accent. I was like, where you from? He said, Maryland. So what the hell, how the hell you get to Pennsylvania, right? Me and my girl and my brother, we went to Pennsylvania to rob a bank. My brother's doing time in the feds. I took the rap for my girl because she was the driver. And our loot was like below the amount. So I had to do state time. He's doing federal time. I was like, oh, all right, So he's like, yeah, my girl broke up with me though, right? I was like, oh, she married a black guy. And I started cracking up and he's looking at me. I was like, ain't karma a bitch? Right? And he just he never said another word to me. Then I had skinheads. I had inmates come up to me. And they were like, Smitty, is all these white dudes looking at you? They were in the kitchen. I was like, yeah, why? He goes, you know who they are? I was like, no. They're looking at your shamrock. And I'm like, all right. And they're like, they're skinheads. They're from like Reading, PA, Central PA. I was like, well, you tell them to learn Irish history. And then, get back to me. And they stayed away from me, those skinheads. Like, they were just...
Have you ever thought about starting your own YouTube channel?
Funny thing is, people have asked me to write a book.
Yeah, I could see this as like each chapter being a different story about prison. You tell it so well, and like you have it all, you know.
Yeah, you know, people have asked me to write a book or do a podcast, stuff like that. Like, but I don't know.
Is this your first one ever sitting down to talk about it?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel honored. I was the first choice. That's awesome.
No, it's like I tell people at work like stories and stuff, and they're like, everybody loves prison stories.
Yeah.
But I just tell I'm lucky. I'm lucky that I started when I did. I'm lucky the people that I came across. Funny thing is, to this day, I come home from work, right, and my wife, my kids, they ask me, how was work? It was all right. That's all I say. I don't say nothing else. They hear stories about me. They hear it from my friends, my ex-coworkers. If we go somewhere, run in, be like, oh, your dad was crazy, all this other stuff, right? But I wasn't crazy. Like, I treated everybody with respect, you know? As a cop, everything. One of the things, the days in the academy, right? Remember, he was saying to us, because you guys could, any one of you could be in there any day. And that stayed in my head, you know?
Anyone, yeah.
Right. By mistaken identity or anything. Like, yeah, I've gotten in a lot of fights in my life. I've had my ass beat plenty of times, right? But I never thought that I could hit somebody, they hit their head, and they're dead. And now I got manslaughter charge. Matter of fact, it just happened to a 6-year-old kid in New Jersey. Got in a fight with a father, and the kid was on a wrestling team. They're celebrating at a restaurant. I don't know what was happening. Kid's 16 years old, and he gets in a fist fight with this adult. Guy dies. Now the kid got manslaughter.
Anything could happen. It's scary,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I don't go out anymore. Like late at night, I got no business being at a bar at 12, 1 o'clock at night.
My buddy always told me, right? My buddy always told me, he goes, there's nothing good that happens past midnight.
No, and even driving on the road, you could be sober and driving fine. See other people you got to worry about.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a fucking scary world.
Yeah, and to this, that's how I am. Like, so I'll say this. I always treat everybody in jail, except the ones that I know did it, that admit to it, they could be not there because of the crime.
Yeah.
You know? It could be me. You know? Like that guy, you know, you look like that cop of from North Philly, you know? Like...
You just never know.
And there's always people that'll be like, yo, are you so-and-so? And I'm like, nah, right? They're like, damn, you look like this guy. Well, if there was a lineup, you know, and they're looking for you know, this guy, and then they see me, I might be picked.
Well, now they're going to know after watching this.
Yeah.
Well, Smitty, thank you so much, man. This was a great conversation. Really loved it. I think the viewers and the listeners are really going to appreciate this.
I had a great time. I actually have more. Like, anytime you want me to come back, I'll come
we'll
back.
have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
You could go on for hours, you know?
Yeah,
like, you have so much.
20 years.
Yeah, crazy, man. But I appreciate the support. Thank you for reaching out.
Absolutely.
And thank you for being a fan of the show, too.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll let everybody know. Like,
I appreciate it.
People already know at work. You know, everyone's already tuning in, watching your past episodes. So
awesome. Did you have a favorite episode out of all of them?
You know what? The dude from Florida that said the one I commented about, like the guy said he came in his cell and there was a black dude here and a white dude here and he wanted the bunk. And I said, you did that in Pennsylvania, you end up as a pincushion.
1090 Jake you're talking about?
Yeah, that dude. Like, that's a punk move. Like, you don't do that, you know? And the other white dudes that were in that prison should have jumped his ass, to be honest with you, by prison rules.
That's
you know?
funny.
But now you actually have a lot of good episodes.
Yeah, and it's well done, and it's always shares a positive message at the end of it. It's always a message of hope and inspiration.
Yeah.
But thank you again, Smitty, and safe travels back to Philly.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.